a somber final salute for an Eastchester police officer who suffered a fatal heart attack on duty during Friday's ice and snowstorm.
My name is Judy DePippo, and I was married to Joseph DePippo. Joe was a police officer, and he worked for the Eastchester Police Department for 31 years. I met Joe in high school. I had moved up here from the Bronx, and I was going to attend Eastchester High School that September, and that's when I first met him. To be honest, I didn't like him. He used to flirt with me all the time, and he used to talk about my short skirts and dresses. And then once we graduated, a few years later, he gave me a ticket for parking illegally outside during the winter. And then about 2 months later, I met him in the diner, and I went up to him, and I still had the ticket from after I paid it, and I put it in front of him on the counter in the diner and said, "Here, this is the ticket, and you owe me $5. He turned around and he said, "Listen, I happen to know you only pay $2 for that." He said, "Would a cup of coffee do?" And I said, "Okay." We talked till about 2:30 in the morning, and after that I went home, and I remember saying to my cousin, "Would you believe I never liked this guy in high school? He asked me out I don't know how many times." I said, "But I'm going to marry him." And she said, "What?" And I said, "I'm going to marry him. Don't ask me why, but I'm going to marry this man." And 1978, October 22nd, we were married. We were married for 29 years. 2 children, Joey and Jennifer. Joe was a family man. He was an old soul kind of a person. He was old-fashioned in his way. He had a lot of old-fashioned values, a lot that he got from his father. He was from a family of 5 kids, and he was like old-fashioned in his way. Kind, very compassionate, very loving and giving. Work was his life. I mean, supporting his family was very important to him. He always felt like he had to keep working as many hours as he could to make sure that he gave his family a good life. He was working 2 jobs before we got married, and then he took on a 3rd job. He was a police officer, and then he worked for an oil company, for a friend of his, Marciano Oil Company. He did that full time and worked around his police hours. And he also was a bailiff in court, and he did that twice a month. And as far as doing anything that was very difficult was a time when one of his police officers, his friend, was killed on the job. Happened to be a neighbor of Joe's that lived next door to his mother now, who was in a bit of trouble, and the cops were coming to arrest him from the city, and he didn't want to be taken. And what he did, he actually called up the police department, and he wanted to know if Joe was working and what shift he was on. So they told him that Joe was going to be on the 4 to 12. So I guess what he did, because he liked Joe and he didn't want to hurt him, he planned on doing it on the 8 to 4 shift before Joe got there. He called up the police department and said that there was a family dispute, and there was a lot of fighting going on, and there was trouble in one of the houses, and what he was planning on doing was, with the first cop that would pull up, he was going to shoot him. And that's just what he did. He shot him, and he killed him instantly. But at the end result was that the man that was involved in this wound up killing his grandmother, the dog, and himself. And it was a sad ending to a tragic time when one police officer was killed, a couple were down, and it was a hard time for Joe after that. It changed him. I remember that. I remember that changing him for a long time afterwards. It was a hard thing, and I think it changed the whole department after that. So after 31 years, he finally made a decision that he was going to retire, and he was on long enough, and it was time for us to start planning our life together and travel and do some stuff. But unfortunately, after he put in his retirement papers, He unfortunately passed away while he was working. He had a massive heart attack, and well, he never got to retire, but he died what he loved doing most, in his police car, with his friends surrounded with him, and that was the end of his career, and the night before was the last time that I saw him alive. What really surprised me, I always knew that Joe was loved in the town by so many people because he was born and raised there, and I knew that he practically knew everybody. But I was very surprised that when the time came and we had to have the funeral and the showing and the wake and everything, I was blown away, and I couldn't believe the turnout. I mean, we had people around the corner trying to come in. It was a snowy, wintry day, raining, snowing, icy, and still it didn't stop people from coming. They were absolutely around. They were around the corner. They had to keep pushing people in and to get out so that everybody can come. I don't think I've seen so many people in my life, from fire departments to all police departments and people from the whole town and other towns. And the day of the funeral, when after the wake, that day, I remember when we came out and got in the car so we can go to the cemetery. They had the fire trucks out there with the flags in the town, and everybody from homes to businesses to stores to everybody was out of their buildings in the streets, saluting him or their hands to their heart as we drove through. And it was amazing to see how one person could be so loved. And it was an honor to know that everybody felt that way, and to know that I shared my life with this man. And I'm sure his children felt the same way when they saw that. It was just good to know how much he was loved. It was a hard day, but almost a day filled with, I don't know how to explain it, such warm feelings to know how much people cared about him and people loved him. And they showed that day. And we miss him. We miss him every single day. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him or think about him. And wish he was still here with us.